Mid-morning, everything moves. Nothing rushes. Wheels, footsteps, screens flipping times. A public place, pretending it can't break. Officer, EC, calm focused male officer, early 30 seconds, medium athletic build, defined jawline, short textured dark hair, light stubble, slightly tired eyes, natural skin texture with pores, tactical police uniform with subtle wear marks, grounded realistic expression, walks like he's counting exits without looking at them. K9, shadow, black and tan German Shepherd, black saddle pattern, black facial mask, golden tan fur, upright alert ears, amber eyes, small notch on left ear, muscular structure, realistic fur texture, tactical canine harness, stays close, no slack, no pull. Then he stops. No bark, no lunge, just stillness. A carry-on by a bench. Ordinary. Unclaimed. Shadow angles his body. Not at the bag, at the people beside it. Protective. And somewhere behind the noise a cart rolls too smoothly. The first thing Ethan Cole noticed wasn't the crowd. It was the rhythm. A public hub at mid-morning always had a pulse-rolling suitcase, wheels over tile, the soft percussion of footsteps, the bright crackle of announcements, the low churn of conversation. You could tell when the pulse changed. You could tell when routine began to slip. Ethan had built a career on that slip. He moved with the measured pace of someone who never needed to rush to arrive on time. Calm wasn't a performance for him, it was a tool. The city had taught him that panic spreads faster than fire, and that in a dense, glass and steel space packed with strangers, his job wasn't just to stop threats, it was to stop fear from becoming one. At his side, K9 Shadow walked like a shadow should, quiet, close, and perfectly aligned with Ethan's stride. Shadow was a German shepherd with a gaze that seemed too intelligent to belong to an animal that couldn't speak. His ears flicked constantly, absorbing the room the way Ethan did, mapping noise, movement, tension. There was no slack in the leash, not because Ethan held it tight, but because Shadow didn't pull. He didn't need to. He trusted the hand that guided him. And Ethan trusted the instincts that guided Shadow. They were assigned to a security detail that morning. High foot traffic, steady flow, nothing that should have been memorable. Captain Maria Hayes had briefed them in the kind of voice she reserved for operations that mattered even when they looked simple. Crowds make idiots brave, she'd said, eyes moving from Ethan to Lucas Reed, the newest member of their team. And they make smart people invisible. We don't need drama. We need discipline. If you brusque. Lucas had nodded too enthusiastically, like a kid pretending to be calm. He had the energy of a rookie who still believed adrenaline was the same thing as courage. Ethan liked him anyway. Competence came in different flavors. Now Lucas was a few steps ahead, scanning the corridor with the focus of someone trying very hard not to look like he was scanning. He caught Ethan's eye once and smiled light humor, silent reassurance. Ethan gave him a slight tilt of his chin. Good. Stay steady. Shadow's nails clicked softly against the polished floor. His breathing was controlled. Everything about him said routine. A working dog in his element. Then without warning, Shadow stopped. It wasn't a dramatic halt. No lunge, no bark, just a cessation of motion so abrupt it was like the air had thickened around him. His head lifted a fraction. His ears snapped forward. His entire posture changed from alert to something sharper. Ethan felt it through the leash before he saw it. Shadow wasn't staring at a person. He was staring at a bag. A simple carry-on sitting near a bench in the flow of traffic. No one paid attention to it, why would they? The world was full of bags. People left them at their feet while they scrolled phones and sipped coffee and waited for instructions from screens. But Shadow's gaze locked on it like it had a heartbeat. Ethan stopped with him, letting his own body mirror stillness. He didn't yank the leash. He didn't speak right away. He listened. The crowd moved around them like water around a rock. Someone brushed past too close. Shadow didn't flinch. His focus was absolute. Ethan crouched slightly, not close enough to trigger alarm, but enough to align his line of sight. The bag was plain, dark fabric, scuffed wheels, no tags visible. A handle extended halfway up like it had been pulled and forgotten. The bench nearby held two people. One was a tired-looking man with earbuds in. The other was a woman with a paper cup and a phone pressed to her cheek. Neither looked like they cared about the bag. Shadow's nose didn't move toward it the way it did when he identified a specific scent. Instead, his body angled between the bag and the bench, subtle, deliberate, protective. That nuance hit Ethan like a cold finger down his spine. Shadow wasn't saying, "That bag is a threat." He was saying, "That bag is connected to a threat near us." Ethan's eyes cut over the people on the bench. The man's foot tapped. The woman laughed quietly into her phone. Ethan's mind did what it always did in moments like this. It slowed down and widened. He took in peripheral details, a faint tremor in the woman's hand, the way the man's eyes never left his screen, the positions of nearby exits, the nearest security camera angles, the placement of pillars and sightlines. He shifted his weight, just enough to step between Shadow and the flow of pedestrians. Lucas noticed instantly. The rookie's smile vanished. He turned, walked back, posture tightening. "What have we got?" Lucas murmured, careful to keep his voice low. Ethan didn't answer right away. He watched Shadow's eyes, Shadow's nose, Shadow's ears. Then Shadow did something Ethan had only seen a few times. He leaned forward one step, then stopped again, not toward the bag but toward the people beside it, placing his body in a line that cut the bench off from the bag like a barrier. Protective, Ethan's stomach went tight. He could feel his pulse trying to surge and forced it down. "Lucas," he said softly, quiet containment. "No radio yet." Lucas blinked, surprised. "No radio?" Was all dumb. Ethan kept his gaze forward. "Not until I know what's watching." Lucas's eyes widened slightly. He understood. Ethan reached down and brushed two fingers against Shadow's collar, a silent cue. Shadow's body stayed rigid, but his ears flicked once, acknowledging Ethan's touch. Trust. Ethan rose smoothly and took two slow steps, angling so he was closer to the bench than the bag. His face stayed neutral. His body language stayed casual. He addressed the woman first, because her phone call made her both distracted and potentially useful. "Ma'am," Ethan said in the tone of someone asking for a small favor, "could I ask you to step over here for a moment?" She glanced up, irritated, then saw the uniform. Her expression changed to wary compliance. Why?" "Just need to ask a quick question," Ethan said. "Nothing serious." Lucas moved subtly, creating space behind her without touching her. Shadow didn't move. The woman stood, still holding her phone. "I'm on a call." "I understand," Ethan said. "It'll take 10 seconds. She stepped away. Her movement revealed something Ethan hadn't noticed. The bag's zipper pull was slightly open, just enough to show a sliver of interior lining. Ethan kept his face calm, but his mind filed it. He turned to the man. "Sir, is this your carry-on?" The man blinked, took out an earbud. "What?" "No." "Do you know whose it is?" "No." The man shrugged. "I thought it was hers." The woman bristled. "It's not mine." Shadow's ears flicked. His gaze shifted not to the bag, but past Ethan's shoulder. Ethan felt the leash tug not forward, not back, just a slight tension like Shadow was pointing with his whole body. Ethan didn't turn his head too fast, but his peripheral vision caught what Shadow had caught. A figure moving through the crowd at a steady pace. Not hurried, not slow, just deliberate. A man in a maintenance-style jacket, pushing a cart. Nothing about him screamed danger. Everything about him screamed invisible. Ethan's instincts sharpened. Shadow's posture tightened again. A low sound built in his chest, not a bark, a warning vibration. Ethan made a decision in the same instant. He lifted his hand to Lucas, not a stop gesture, but a hold. Lucas froze. Ethan's voice stayed calm. "Sir, ma'am, please step toward that column and stay there." "Is something wrong?" the woman demanded, suddenly nervous. "Not if we do this quietly," Ethan said. The man started to protest, but Lucas stepped into his line gently, firm without aggression. "Just for a moment," Lucas said. "We'll explain." Ethan didn't look at them again. His attention tracked the maintenance jacket man. He watched the man's hands, the cart, the path. The man's gaze slid over Ethan, over Shadow, and moved on too quickly, too practiced, like he'd trained himself never to stare at a uniform. Ethan's gut tightened. Shadow's head turned slightly, following the man. That was enough. Ethan's next move couldn't be loud. It couldn't be rushed. It had to be surgical. He touched the radio at his shoulder but didn't press it. He spoke quietly into Lucas's ear instead. "You see the maintenance jacket?" Cart, moving left to right. Lucas's eyes flicked. He nodded once. "Keep civilians calm. Don't chase. Just track." Lucas swallowed. "Got it." Ethan shifted his body, so he and Shadow moved in a casual arc, as if continuing patrol. The leash stayed loose. Shadow walked at Ethan's pace, but his focus never broke. His eyes were locked on the man with the cart. The crowd thickened near an information screen. People paused, clustered, blocking lines of sight. Ethan adjusted to keep the man in view. He didn't run. He didn't signal. He watched. The man with the cart slowed near a pillar. He paused like he was checking something. His hand dipped into his jacket pocket. Shadow stiffened so hard Ethan felt it travel through the leash into his wrist. Ethan's mind clicked. If the man was connected to the bag, then the bag was not the threat, it was the hook. The bait. The beacon. Something designed to get attention. And if the man was now responding, that meant one thing. He was watching their reaction. Ethan's throat went dry. He pressed his radio then, but his voice stayed measured low, coded. "Captain Hayes," he said. "This is Cole. Possible live surveillance situation. Need discreet perimeter, no sirens, no overhead announcements. I'll update with visual." A beat. Then Captain Maria Hayes's voice came back steady, controlled. "Copy, Cole. Talk to me." Ethan's eyes stayed on the man. Unattended carry-on near bench, K9 protective posture, possible handler and maintenance jacket pushing cart, moving toward East Corridor. "Understood," Hayes said. "Containment teams moving. Keep it quiet." Ethan felt a small wave of relief. Maria knew how to do quiet. Shadow's ears flicked again. The man with the cart took out something small from his pocket. Not a phone, something slimmer. He glanced at it, then tucked it away. Ethan's blood cooled. Signal check. Shadow's body angled protective again. But now it was as if he was trying to block Ethan from the man's line. Shadow wasn't just warning. He was shielding. Ethan made his next decision. He would not confront the man in the crowd. Not here. Not where panic could become a weapon. Instead, he would tighten the net around the man, without letting him feel it. He turned slightly, walked past the man's position, and let Shadow's gaze do the tracking while Ethan's face remained neutral. The man's eyes slid over them again, this time lingering just a fraction too long. Ethan didn't change his pace. He passed. He waited until he'd cleared the pillar, then spoke into his radio again. Quieter. "Hayes," suspect acknowledged us. "Keep your teams out of his direct view. He's checking something in pocket, could be receiver." "Copy," Hayes replied. "Lucas Reed is with you?" "He's back on the initial area," Ethan said. "He's holding civilians." "Good," Hayes said. "Lena is en route to advise on signal behavior if you confirm device. Dr. Lena Moore." Ethan's mind flashed to her calm face, her analytical mind, the way she could make sense of chaos without escalating it. "Good." Shadow's head turned sharply. The man with the cart started moving again, but now he wasn't heading away. He was drifting back in the direction of the unattended bag. Ethan's pulse kicked. The man wanted eyes on his bait, or he wanted to retrieve it. Either way, Ethan couldn't let him. Ethan's voice stayed level. "Hayes, he's returning toward the bag. I'm going to position to intercept off the main flow." "Do it," Hayes said. "No hero moves. Precision." Ethan almost smiled. Maria always knew what to say. He guided Shadow toward a corridor that created a shallow angle to the bag area. A path that would allow Ethan to step into the man's route without looking like a tackle. He moved like a chess piece, not a bullet. Shadow walked close, his body a quiet wall of muscle and intent. As Ethan neared the open space, he saw Lucas still near the bench. The rookie's stance was tense but controlled. The woman and man from the bench had been moved to the side, kept calm by Lucas's steady presence. Lucas caught Ethan's eye and gave a small signal. Bag still there, civilians watching. No panic yet. Good. The maintenance jacket man entered the open space, pushing the cart with the same measured pace. His face was neutral, eyes scanning. Shadow's posture rose, a silent warning to anyone who knew how to read a working dog. Ethan stepped forward, just enough to cross the man's path like an accidental obstacle. "Morning," Ethan said casually, voice friendly. The man paused, hands still on the cart handle. "Morning," Ethan nodded toward the cart. "Facility team busy today." The man's eyes flicked to Shadow. A fraction too much tension appeared in his jaw. "Always busy," the man said. Shadow's growl vibrated low, so low most civilians wouldn't hear it. Ethan did. The man did too, based on the way his fingers tightened on the handle. Ethan kept his tone light. "You mind if I ask you to take a quick detour? We're handling a minor situation ahead." The man's eyes sharpened. "What situation?" "Unattended property," Ethan said. "Standard protocol." The man's gaze darted toward the bag. There it was. A tell. Shadow's body shifted half a step, placing himself between Ethan and the man. Protective. Anchoring. Ethan's calm held. "Just helps us keep things moving," Ethan said. "I'll guide you." The man's mouth tightened. "I'm on schedule." "I understand," Ethan replied. "This will be faster than if you go forward and we stop you later." The man's eyes narrowed, calculating. The crowd noise seemed to soften in Ethan's awareness, like the world was holding its breath. Shadow's ears flicked. His eyes stayed locked. The man's hand slid down the cart handle as if adjusting grip. Ethan recognized the shift. Decision point. If the man bolted, Ethan needed the crowd protected. He angled his body slightly, giving the man a path that did not lead through civilians toward a corridor with fewer people. A corridor where Captain Hayes's discreet perimeter could close in. Ethan kept his voice gentle. "This way." The man hesitated. Then, as if making a choice, he pushed the cart forward toward the corridor. Ethan walked with him, Shadow beside him, every muscle in Ethan's body ready but restrained. Lucas remained at the bag, holding the initial zone. Captain Hayes's net began to tighten, unseen. And somewhere in the background, silent, humming, invisible whatever signal had drawn, Shadow's protective alert continued to speak. Ethan could feel it like a pressure behind his eyes. Someone was watching. Someone was adapting. And Ethan had one job: keep the public pulse steady long enough to cut the cord before fear became the weapon. The corridor ahead narrowed like a funnel. Not in architecture, glass and steel, still framed it wide enough for carts and foot traffic, but in feeling. The crowd thinned as if the building itself had decided to leave this strip of space to people with reasons. A few travelers drifted by, eyes down, earbuds in, disengaged. The kind of bodies you didn't want involved if something went wrong. Ethan walked half a step behind the maintenance jacket man, keeping the angle that allowed him to see both hands without looking like he was watching them. Shadow matched Ethan, shoulder aligned with Ethan's thigh, head level, gaze forward, too controlled for a dog that was just walking. It stormed. The man pushed his cart with deliberate steadiness. On the surface, he was compliant. Underneath, Ethan could feel calculation in each micro-pause, each subtle glance. The kind of calculation that only existed when someone was measuring exits, timing, options. Ethan's radio crackled softly. "Cole," Captain Maria Hayes said, her voice low and calm. "Positions are set. Give me your read." Ethan answered without breaking stride, as if talking into his collar was as normal as breathing. "He's moving with me." No overt threat displayed. Tension when he looks at Shadow. "He's definitely keyed to the unattended bag zone." "Copy," Hayes said. "Keep him moving. Don't spook him." Ethan's jaw tightened. Spooking him would be easy. A loud voice, a firm hand, a sudden gesture. People thought confrontation was strength. Ethan knew confrontation was often just the shortest path to collateral damage. Shadow made a tiny sound, barely a puff of breath, then shifted his head toward the man's jacket pocket again. Ethan noticed. The pocket, the signal receiver. The man's pace changed, a fraction faster. It wasn't panic, it was decision. Like he'd chosen an option and needed to execute before the board shifted. Ethan angled slightly left, guiding them toward an intersection where a side corridor branched off. That corridor was quiet, cleaner sightlines, fewer people. Hayes's perimeter would be there. Shadow stayed close, subtly shaping the man's path like a living wedge. Not threatening, not lunging, just existing in a way that made wrong choices feel difficult. The man glanced back over his shoulder once. His eyes hit Ethan's badge, then Shadow, then the corridor ahead. Ethan gave him a small, polite smile, the kind that said, "We're doing this the easy way. We're after a." The man's lips pressed tight. They entered the side corridor. It looked empty at first. Then Ethan's peripheral vision caught movement. A woman at a wall-mounted kiosk, tapping a screen. A man in a hoodie, leaning near a vending machine. A janitor cart parked against the wall. Normal. But Ethan's brain didn't read normal. It read positions. Shadow's posture changed again, still controlled, but his shoulders rose. His ears flicked left, then right. He was mapping bodies the way Ethan was. Ethan's radio clicked. Captain Hayes again. Quieter. "Cole, we're in place. Give the word." Ethan didn't answer immediately. He watched the maintenance man's hands, watched the pocket, watched his breathing. Then the man did the one thing that confirmed everything. He touched his pocket. Not a casual adjustment, a purposeful press, like he was checking whether an object was still there. Ethan's blood ran cold. If that was a receiver, and the bag was transmitting, then the man wasn't just a watcher, he was the link, the control point. And Ethan needed him alive, unpanicked, and contained. Ethan spoke into his radio, tone calm. "Maria, hold." "Not yet." Hayes didn't argue. "Copy." Ethan stepped slightly ahead, just enough to slow the man without stopping him. "Appreciate the cooperation," Ethan said conversationally. "You work this side often?" The man's eyes narrowed at the question. "Sometimes. It is flest. Then you know this corridor's cameras catch everything," Ethan said casually, as if making small talk about infrastructure. The man's jaw twitched. Shadow's gaze locked on the man's pocket again. His nostrils flared. Ethan's mind made a leap. If the receiver was in the pocket, it might carry a scent, metal, plastic, oil. Shadow wasn't just reacting to signal theory. He was reacting to something physical. Ethan stopped walking. Not abruptly, smoothly, as if he'd arrived at a destination. The maintenance man took one more step and realized Ethan wasn't following. He turned slightly, frown cutting into his face. "What now?" the man said. Ethan kept his tone mild. "I'm going to ask you to set the cart aside and show me what's in your jacket pocket." The man's eyes hardened. "I don't have to do that." "You do," Ethan said, still calm. "Because my partner is alerting, and I'm responsible for public safety." Shadow didn't bark. He didn't lunge. He simply stood a little taller, eyes unblinking. The man's hand tightened on the cart handle. Ethan felt the air compress. This was the knife edge where people made bad decisions. Ethan raised his hand, not at the man, but slightly outward, like he was calming traffic. "Listen," Ethan said softly. "We can do this without anyone getting hurt. That's my goal." The man's gaze flicked past Ethan, toward the vending machine. The hoodie man. Ethan's instincts screamed. A partner. Not named. Not a new character, just a minor role in this moment. A function. Ethan didn't look. He didn't need to. Shadow did. Setter Ben sign when the next time in a Mount Tapagress. Shadow's head snapped toward the hoodie man. A low growl rolled out, controlled but unmistakable. The hoodie man froze. Ethan's voice dropped a fraction. "Captain Hayes," he said into his radio. "Now." The corridor shifted. The kiosk woman stepped away from the screen like she'd been waiting for a cue. The janitor straightened, posture sharpening. Captain Maria Hayes emerged from the far end of the corridor, weapon holstered but presence like steel. Deputy Lucas Reed appeared behind Ethan from the main corridor, moving fast but controlled. The maintenance man's eyes widened. In a single instant, his calculation changed. His hand dove into his pocket. Shadow exploded forward, not in attack, but in interception. He lunged just enough to pin the man's wrist against his own chest with a snapping grip at the fabric, not flesh. A trained K9 move. Disrupt, control, prevent. Ethan stepped in at the same time, twisting the man's arm up and away, forcing him against the wall. The man grunted, struggling. Hayes was there instantly, voice sharp and steady. "Hands where I can see them." The hoodie man tried to step back, but Lucas cut him off. moving like a gate slamming shut. "Don't," Lucas said, voice firm. "Just don't." The hoodie man hesitated. Then he bolted. Not toward civilians. Toward the side, exit. Ethan's focus stayed on the maintenance man. He couldn't split. "That's why you had a team." Hayes's eyes flicked. Lucas. Lucas was already moving. Shadow held the maintenance man pinned, growling low, teeth clamped on fabric. Ethan secured the man's wrist, pried his fingers open. Something small fell to the floor, with a sharp plastic clack. A slim device. Black. No screen. Just a single tiny indicator light blinking. Dr. Lena Moore's voice came through Ethan's earpiece. Calm, as if she'd been there all along. "Cole, do you have eyes on the device?" Ethan exhaled sharply. "Yes. Do not touch it with bare hands," Lena said. "If it's a receiver or relay, it may store data or trigger a response if disrupted." Ethan looked at Hayes. Hayes nodded once, understanding. Ethan used his gloved hand to slide the device into an evidence bag Hayes produced, like it had been conjured from thin air. Maria always thought 3 steps ahead. The maintenance man was pinned, breathing hard. He tried to speak, but Ethan pressed him gently into the wall, voice low. "Talk to me," Ethan said. "Who does that device report to?" The man's eyes were cold. "You don't understand what you're touching." Ethan's voice stayed calm, but his words sharpened. "I understand you were monitoring an unattended bag in a crowded public space. That's enough." Shadow's teeth released the fabric, but he didn't back away. He stayed close, body between the man and Ethan like a living shield. Hayes stepped closer. "We need to know if there's an active threat tied to that bag," she said. "Right now." The maintenance man smirked. "Too late." Ethan felt the chill bloom behind his ribs. Too late could mean anything. Too late could mean detonation. Too late could mean panic. Too late could mean someone else moving. Ethan's radio crackled. Lucas's voice, breathless. "He's running east, service exit." Then another voice cut in, controlled but urgent. "Cole, Hayes' unattended bag zone is escalating. Civilians are noticing K9 posture. We can't hold calm much longer." Ethan's mind snapped back to the original bait. The bag. The pulse of the public space. If the bag was still transmitting, and they just grabbed the receiver, the system might adapt. The observer might shift. The threat might change. Dr. Lena Moore's voice again, precise. If that device was actively receiving, the transmitter might switch modes once it loses its endpoint. That could increase power output, making it easier to detect or triggering a failsafe. "You need to secure the bag immediately." Ethan nodded, though Lena couldn't see him. "Copy." Hayes stepped back, making decisions at the speed of discipline. "Cole, take Shadow and go. I'll handle this one. Lucas will circle back once he has his runner." Ethan hesitated for the briefest beat. Leaving Hayes in a corridor with a suspect was not his favorite move. But Hayes wasn't a rookie. She was command for a reason. Hayes met his eyes. "Go," she said. "Public safety first." Ethan turned. Shadow moved with him instantly, leash loose, trust absolute. They moved back toward the main concourse, where the crowd's hum had shifted from routine to something brittle. Ethan could feel it before he saw it. People were pausing, looking, whispering, phones coming out. That's how panic started. Not with screams, but with attention. Lucas had kept things contained near the bag earlier, but now the bag was a magnet. Ethan broke into a controlled jog, not sprinting. Sprinting made people look. Sprinting made fear. He moved fast enough to arrive, slow enough to remain invisible. Shadow's stride lengthened, fluid, powerful. His ears were up, eyes scanning. They rounded the corner and Ethan saw it. The bag was still there, near the bench. But now 2 civilians stood too close, pointing at it. Lucas was there, trying to gently guide them away, smiling too hard. "Hey folks, just give us a little space, okay?" Routine check. The civilians didn't move much. Curiosity had them. Then Shadow saw the bag. His posture snapped again. But this time, something in him escalated. Not aggression. Urgency. He barked once sharp, commanding. It echoed. Heads turned. The corridor fell silent in a ripple. Ethan's stomach dropped. That bark was an alarm bell, and everyone heard it. Ethan stepped forward quickly, voice calm but firm. Sir, ma'am, please step back, now. The civilians flinched at Ethan's tone and moved. Good. Ethan crouched near the bag without touching it. Shadow circled it, not close enough to make contact, but close enough to confirm. His nose lifted, his ears flicked. His body leaned in, then pulled back, like he could feel something on it. Ethan's radio clicked. Captain Hayes's voice tight. Cole. Update. Ethan kept his eyes on the bag. Shadow's alert is escalating. I have reason to believe it's tied to a live signal. Need Lena. Lena's voice came immediately, like she'd been listening. Cole. Describe Shadow's behavior. Protective earlier, Ethan said. Now urgent. Barking. He's avoiding close contact. Lena's breath sharpened slightly. That suggests either increased emission or a change in the device state. Do you have an EOD team on standby? Hayes answered over Ethan's shoulder, voice decisive. EOD is en route. EOD is en route. Ethan's mind raced through options. He couldn't move the bag. Not unless he knew. Not unless he had to. He looked at Lucas. Clear the immediate radius, calm voices, no alarms. Lucas nodded, face pale. He moved with new seriousness, guiding people away with soft authority. Ethan focused on Shadow. Show me, Ethan whispered. Shadow's eyes met Ethan's for half a second. Then Shadow turned head, snapping toward the crowd. Not to a person, to a line. A man standing behind a column, partly obscured, watching the bag area. Shadow's growl rose. Ethan felt the world tighten. The Watcher. The second endpoint. The system had redundancy. Ethan didn't chase. He didn't shout. He spoke quietly into his radio. Hayes. Shadow just reacquired a line of sight Watcher near column 3. I can't confirm device status on the bag. Suspect may be attempting to trigger panic. Hayes's voice was steel. Contain. Do not engage in the crowd. Ethan's eyes stayed on the column. The man shifted, as if realizing he'd been seen. And then, like a spark hitting dry, leave someone in the crowd yelled. Why is that dog barking? A second voice rose. Is there a bomb? Is there a bomb? Phones lifted higher. People started to back up. The pulse changed. Fear began to move. Ethan stood, stepping onto the edge of a small raised platform near the bench, just enough to be seen without being theatrical. He lifted his hand, palm out. His voice carried not a shout, but a command with calm authority. Everyone, Ethan said, we have a routine security check in progress. Please keep walking. There is no need to run. Follow staff directions. Some people listened. Some didn't. Fear didn't care about logic. It cared about momentum. Shadow barked again, short, urgent, then swung his body to block a family with a stroller from moving toward the bag. Protective again. Anchoring. Ethan's heart hammered, but his face stayed controlled. He stepped down, moved toward the family, gentle but firm. Ma'am, sir, this way, he said, guiding them around. The family complied. Ethan's eyes flicked to the column again. The Watcher was gone. A cold wave hit Ethan's gut. Gone meant moving. Moving meant action. Dr. Lena Moore's voice cut in, calm but urgent. Cole, if the bag is connected to the transmitter and you've removed one receiver, the system might try to preserve data or erase it. That can be done by overheating, by rupture, or by what? Ethan asked, already knowing the answer he didn't want. By converting the device into a hazard, Lena said quietly. Ethan stared at the bag. He could almost feel the invisible threat humming inside it, like a heartbeat under fabric. EOD would take minutes. Minutes were long in a crowd. Ethan's mind shifted to pure precision. He spoke into his radio. Hayes, I need a hard perimeter now. Quiet. No alarms. Just bodies. Keep civilians moving away without triggering a stampede. Copy, Hayes said instantly. Ethan looked at Lucas. Lucas, eyes on exits. Keep movement smooth. Use humor if you can. Keep them from feeling like they're being herded. Lucas swallowed, nodded. On it. Shadow's growl deepened. Ethan crouched again, closer now but still not touching. He listened not with his ears, but with his instincts. A bag didn't hum. It didn't click. It didn't tick, but Ethan could feel the tension in the space around it like electricity before lightning. Shadow backed up half a step. That was Shadow saying, "This is getting worse." Ethan's throat went dry. He spoke softly to Shadow, words meant for both of them. "Stay with me." Shadow's eyes flicked to Ethan, then back to the bag. His body stayed between Ethan and it, as if he could absorb the danger with muscle and loyalty. Ethan felt a sudden, fierce surge of protectiveness that had nothing to do with training and everything to do with bond. He didn't let it show. He took a breath. Then he did the only thing that fit his code. He protected first. He turned to the nearest staff member, a uniformed attendant with wide eyes. "Sir," Ethan said calmly, "I need you to guide people away from this area. Tell them there's a spill cleanup. Keep it casual. No panic." The attendant blinked. "A spill?" "Yes," Ethan said. "Right now." The attendant nodded shakily and moved, speaking in a practiced customer service tone that was suddenly a weapon against fear. "Folks, we're just cleaning up a spill. If you could just move this way, thank you." It worked, partly. People moved because it was normal. Normal was safe. Ethan's radio crackled. A new voice, EOD team leader, terse. "We're 2 minutes out." 2 minutes. Ethan stared at the bag. 2 minutes could be a lifetime. Shadow's ears snapped toward the ceiling speakers. Ethan heard it too, faint and alert tone, starting up somewhere in the system. Not a full alarm yet. A pre-alarm. Someone, somewhere, had pressed a button. Ethan snapped his radio to his mouth. "Hayes, kill any automatic announcements now. We cannot have an alarm tone. It will trigger stampede." Hayes's reply was immediate. "Already done." "Good." Ethan exhaled. Then Shadow's head whipped again. His gaze locked on a different direction, another line of sight. The watcher had moved. Shadow tracked him. Ethan followed Shadow's line with his eyes, scanning through moving bodies. And then he saw it. A man slipping through the crowd at the edge of the bag zone, heading toward a service doorway too smooth, too fast, trying to look casual. Ethan's instinct screamed, "He's going to trigger something." Ethan couldn't chase. Not here. Not with civilians. But he could block. He moved quickly, angling his path to intercept, staying calm in posture while speed lived only in his legs. Shadow matched him. Ethan reached the service doorway at the same time as the man. Ethan placed his hand on the door handle first, casual as if he'd just decided to check it. The man froze. Their eyes met. Ethan spoke softly, almost friendly. "That door's restricted." The man's lips twitched. "I'm with maintenance." Ethan nodded toward Shadow. "So was the last guy." Shadow growled low. The man's eyes flicked to the bag area behind Ethan. Ethan's heart hammered. The man's hand slid toward his pocket. Not for a weapon, for a trigger. Ethan moved. Not a tackle. A controlled step into the man's space, pinning his arm with his body weight and twisting his wrist up. Shadow lunged not to bite but to block the man's other hand from reaching. The man hissed, struggling. Ethan pressed him against the wall by the door, voice low and lethal in its calm. "Don't." The man's fingers opened. A small object dropped, metallic, coin-sized. Ethan's blood turned to ice. A trigger device. Hayes's voice in Ethan's ear. "Cole. Status." Ethan's eyes stayed on the device on the floor. He didn't touch it. He didn't look away. He said one word into his radio, and the word carried everything. EOD. The moment Ethan said EOD, the air around him changed. It wasn't loud, nothing exploded. No alarms screamed, but the invisible machinery of response clicked into place. Captain Maria Hayes's containment teams didn't rush. They shifted. Like a net tightening one knot at a time. Bodies moved to doorways. Sightlines closed. Civilians were guided away as if by coincidence, spill cleanup. Temporary reroute. Please keep walking, until the space around gate-side benches and service corridors thinned into a controlled perimeter. Ethan kept the suspect pinned against the wall. Shadow stood close, shoulder braced, eyes fixed on the coin-sized device on the floor like it might sprout legs. His growl never rose into a bark. It didn't need to. The man could feel it. The suspect's breathing was steady, almost calm. That calm was what scared Ethan most. "You won't stop it," the man said quietly, voice flat. Ethan didn't answer. He focused on control, on keeping hands visible, on not letting the public pulse spike. He spoke into his radio in the same measured tone he used for routine calls. Hayes, I have a second endpoint at service door. Coin-sized trigger device on floor. Do not let anyone approach. I need EOD priority here and at the bag. Hayes's reply was instant, unshaken. Copy. EOD is seconds out. Hold him. Ethan adjusted his grip, shifting the suspect's shoulder higher against the wall, firm, not cruel. The suspect's eyes flicked toward the crowd line, searching for gaps, exits, opportunities. There weren't any. Captain Hayes's perimeter had become a wall without looking like one. Shadow's ears snapped toward the bag zone in the distance. Ethan followed the dog's attention. Through the glass and bodies, he could still see the unattended carry-on, small, ordinary, quietly terrifying. A piece of fabric and wheels, holding the potential to turn fear into a stampede. Dr. Lena Moore's voice came in over comms, controlled but sharper now. Cole, do not touch the trigger device. If it's paired, it could be coded to send a final command when moved. Ethan's jaw tightened. Copy. Also, Lena continued, if the bag device is a relay, it may be configured to auto-escalate when it loses contact. That would explain Shadow's rising urgency. Footsteps approached, heavy, deliberate. EO'd. 2 technicians in protective gear moved in with the calm of people who lived in the space between seconds. One carried a compact scanner and a padded case. The other carried a small blast blanket and tools designed to neutralize the worst outcomes of human planning. The lead tech's voice came through a filtered mic. Officer status? Ethan kept the suspect pinned. Coin-sized trigger device on floor. Suspect attempted pocket reach. Secondary hazard is unattended carry-on near bench. The tech's head turned. Copy. It's... He knelt near the device with a controlled slowness, positioning a scanner without crossing the danger line. A quiet whine, a digital pulse. The screen lit with readings Ethan couldn't interpret, but the tech's posture tightened. Paired transmitter, the tech said. Low power but encrypted. Could be a command fob for a larger device. Ethan felt his lungs tighten. Can you isolate it? Working, the tech said. He deployed a small containment dome over the device, a clear shield that slid into place like a lid sealing a jar. Shadow's growl dropped slightly, as if recognizing the threat had been muffled. Ethan didn't relax. Not yet. Cole, Captain Hayes said. We have eyes on the earlier maintenance suspect in custody. Lucas is returning. Ethan exhaled one tight breath. Copy. The lead tech stood carefully, eyes on Ethan. We need to move to the bag. The fob's likely linked. If they planned a crowd event, the bag is the headline. Ethan nodded once. Do it. Keep it quiet. Hayes's voice slid into the channel, controlled command. All units maintain calm perimeter. No alarms, no running. We move like this is routine. It was the most dangerous lie they could tell. And it was the only one that saved lives. Ethan handed the pinned suspect off to 2 tactical officers who slid in without drama, cuffs clicking into place with soft finality. The man didn't resist. He didn't need to. His eyes stayed on Ethan. You think you're the hero, the man murmured. Ethan's voice was low. No. I'm the barrier. 7 times 7 time, in never. Then Ethan turned and moved with Shadow toward the bag. Lucas met them halfway. Breathless from the sprint he'd never allowed civilians to see, he fell into step beside Ethan, eyes wide. We got the runner, Lucas said quietly. Tried to ditch through East service. Contained him. He had a burner, and Lucas swallowed. He was smiling. Ethan's jaw tightened. Keep your head. Smile means he thinks he has a plan. Lucas nodded, forcing his breath to steady. Got it. As they approached the bench area, the crowd was thinner now, guided away by staff and officers using every soft technique possible. Still, the energy lingered, people looking back, confusion rising, curiosity itching for panic. Shadow's posture snapped as they came within range. His ears rose, his nose lifted. He did not approach the bag directly. He circled it at a careful distance, a predator's precision without aggression. The EOD team arrived moments later, stepping into the space like surgeons entering an operating room. One placed a portable scanner on the floor and slid it toward the bag without touching it. The scanner chirped, then chirped again. The tech's shoulders tightened. "We've got active electronics," he said. "Signal emission is stronger than a basic tracker." Dr. Lena Moore's voice cut in through comms, crisp. "If it's stronger, it's compensating. It may be trying to re-establish a connection." Ethan crouched, eyes never leaving the bag. "Can you neutralize?" The tech nodded slowly. "We can attempt signal isolation and disarm, but if it's rigged, we don't get a second try," Ethan finished. Shadow made a low, urgent sound and backed up half a step. A warning. The tech's gaze flicked to Shadow. He didn't dismiss it. Good techs listen to instincts too. "We're going to blanket and disrupt," the tech decided. "We'll shield it, jam it, and remove it to a containment vessel." Ethan's muscles tensed. "Do it." The tech deployed a compact blast blanket with controlled movements, draping it over the bag like a heavy cloak. The second tech positioned a jammer unit, small, dense, humming with silent force. For a moment, nothing happened. The terminal seemed to hold its breath. Shadow's body stayed rigid. His eyes were locked. Ethan could feel his own heartbeat in his throat. Then the jammer emitted a low tone. The scanner's chirp stuttered. The tech's voice was tight. Signal dropped. Shadow's growl softened by a fraction. The tech slid the blanketed bag onto a small transfer sled and guided it toward a containment cylinder, a portable vessel designed to swallow worst-case scenarios. The moment the bag crossed the threshold, a sharp, angry beep erupted from inside the blanket. Ethan's blood went cold. The tech's voice snapped. "It's trying to execute a command." And then, silence. The beep cut off abruptly as the containment cylinder sealed. Shadow exhaled in a long breath, as if releasing a tension he'd been carrying in his bones. Ethan stayed crouched for one heartbeat longer, making sure the moment didn't rebound into chaos. Then he stood. "Everyone keep moving," Ethan said calmly to nearby staff, voice firm but controlled. "We're clear in this zone." No one screamed. No one ran. The pulse didn't break. Captain Hayes's calm containment had worked. EOD moved the sealed cylinder down a restricted corridor. The public never saw it. They only saw officers standing where officers stood every day. Normal. Safe. Ethan's radio crackled. Hayes again. "Cole. Status?" Ethan looked down at Shadow, then out at the crowd. "Bag contained. Trigger device isolated. 2 suspects in custody. Crowd stable." Hayes's exhale came through the line. "Good work. Bring Shadow to the temporary command room. Lena's there." "And thanking Restrade." Ethan nodded. "Copy." He guided Shadow through the corridor like they were returning from a routine sweep. Lucas followed close, still keyed up, trying to burn nervous energy through movement rather than words. In a small room off the main concourse plain walls, a table, a laptop. Dr. Lena Moore stood with a tablet in her hands. She had the kind of stillness that made people feel calmer just by being near her. She looked up as Ethan entered. Her gaze flicked to Shadow first. "Good boy," she said softly, not as flattery but as recognition. Shadow's tail moved once, small and controlled. Ethan's throat tightened unexpectedly. Not from fear now, but from the delayed impact of what could have happened. Lena turned the tablet so Ethan could see. A waveform. Signal logs. Data spikes. "This wasn't a basic tracker," Lena said, voice low. "It was a relay node." Ethan's jaw clenched. "A relay for what?" "For surveillance and disruption," Lena said. "They wanted to monitor response patterns, and if needed trigger chaos." The bag device carried an active transmitter with redundancy. The coin fob likely triggered escalation, but EOD's containment prevented execution. Lucas swallowed hard. "So, it could have caused mass panic and injuries without ever detonating," Lena said. "Sometimes the weapon is not the explosion, it's the crowd." Ethan stared at the waveform. He thought of the family Shadow had blocked, the raised phones. The first shout, "Is there a bomb?" The public was a living system. Fragile, powerful, and someone had tried to exploit it. Captain Hayes entered then, posture still controlled, but the faint tension around her eyes betraying how close the day had come to catastrophe. Suspects are in holding, Hayes said. We've got devices, IDs, and encrypted storage. Federal agencies will be all over this. Ethan kept his voice steady. What about the link? Who were they watching? Hayes's mouth tightened. We don't have the full map yet. Lena tapped the tablet. But we have something. The relay attempted to connect to a receiver in real time. We captured the handshake pattern before the jammer cut it. It's not consumer grade. Ethan's eyes narrowed. Meaning organized, Lena said quietly. Professional. APM. Lucas ran a hand through his hair. Great. So, we just made enemies with people who have budgets. Hayes shot him a look not unkind but sharp. We made enemies with people who underestimate dogs. Shadow's ears flicked at the word dogs. Ethan looked down at Shadow and felt something shift inside him. He'd always trusted Shadow. But today wasn't just trust. Today was proof. Ethan rested a hand on Shadow's shoulder, feeling the steady warmth beneath his fur. Shadow leaned into it, subtle, grounding. Hayes's gaze softened for a second rare. Public's already posting videos, she said. They saw Shadow bark. They saw officers moving people away. They'll spin stories. Lucas let out a weak laugh. They always do. Ethan's voice was quiet. Let them, as long as they keep moving. Lena's eyes stayed on Ethan. You kept the pulse stable, she said softly. That's why no one got hurt. Ethan didn't answer right away. Because praise wasn't the point. The point was that if he'd done one thing differently, one shouted command, one sprint, one visible tackle in the crowd, fear would have done the rest. He looked at Hayes. We're done here? Hayes nodded. For now. Federal teams will take custody. We'll file, debrief, and go home. Home, Lucas repeated. Like the word didn't feel real. Ethan exhaled. Slow. He didn't feel triumphant. He felt quiet. As they walked back through the now normal concourse, Ethan noticed people glancing at them. Some recognized the dog. Some whispered. Phones rose again, not in fear now, but in fascination. Shadow walked as if none of it existed. He didn't crave attention. He didn't understand fame. He understood work. And the work was done. At the exit corridor, a child tugged at a parent's sleeve and pointed at Shadow. The parent smiled nervously and waved. Ethan kept moving, offering only a small nod. He didn't want interviews. He didn't want headlines. He wanted the public space to return to routine, because routine was what people deserved when they came to places meant for ordinary life. Outside, the sky was bright, indifferent to human drama. Ethan paused for a moment near the threshold and looked down at Shadow. Shadow looked back. No bark, no heroic pose, just the steady gaze of a partner who had carried danger in silence and released it only when it mattered. Ethan's voice was barely a whisper. You knew. Shadow's tail thumped once. Lucas lingered behind them, eyes flicking to Shadow like he was seeing him for the first time. I swear, Lucas murmured half to himself. He's smarter than most of us. Hayes heard and didn't disagree. She simply said, let's go. And they did, walking out of the building like it had been an ordinary morning. Like fear hadn't almost become a weapon. Like a dog hadn't just saved strangers by reading an invisible threat through instinct and loyalty. But Ethan knew better. And as his hand rested on Shadow's shoulder one last time before they stepped into the day, Ethan felt the quiet weight of what had been prevented. Not a headline. Not a viral clip. 1,000 small lives continuing unbroken because someone stayed. By the time the federal teams arrived, the concourse had already begun to forget. That was always the strange thing about public spaces, how quickly they absorbed trauma and smoothed it over with routine. Calm, and a dog refused to be fooled by ordinary. Only the officers remembered how close the water had come. Ethan stood just outside the temporary command room, Shadow at his side, watching people move past the glass wall as if nothing had happened. In some ways, that was the victory. Not that danger had existed, but that it had passed without leaving a scar.